Andy Duran,
Present.
Ann Hill,
Present.
Carrie Steinbach, present, Tim Finish, Lauren Hurd, present. Amy Collins,
Present.
Laura Brickstone.
Present.
All right, now, and as we do at every meeting, is the reading of the mission, vision, and values for Lake Bluff School District 65, which were newly customized as part of our strategic planning process. So just because of the technical difficulties, I think I'll just take this one for tonight. So District 65 mission statement is to ensure academic achievement and personal growth for all students through innovative and engaging educational opportunities. We envision an inclusive community of motivated learners who are inspired to change the world through exploration and collaboration. Our motto, of course, is excellence in education, enthusiasm for life, every student, every day. I'm excited to discuss in detail later tonight our strategic plan. Item 4 is recognition. So
We're
Dr.
going to table the video.
We're
And then
we will table the video. That's smart. Yes. So we'll move that to those of you that are following on the agenda. It was the video of the 100th anniversary of the Board of Ed. So we will do that at the next meeting.
Steve Douglas was very excited that we were probably gonna watch it tonight. So
Yeah, I was
would
excited too.
ask that we can put it on next time.
it will be on. next
Absolutely. Okay.
I was excited.
With that being said, we'll move on to public comment. So at every Board of Education meeting, we offer 2 options for public comment, one at the beginning and one towards the end. Doesn't look like there's anybody. Oh, is there anybody in the audience who would like to discuss the board with a public comment? Just want to make sure. Anybody on Zoom? I guess not. Okay, we will have an opportunity later in the meeting. So with that, we'll move on to item 6, addition of a discussion item. At every board meeting, we offer the opportunity for board members to suggest a discussion item for future agendas. Does anyone have anything to suggest tonight? I have one. A few months ago, we just had a discussion, I don't remember exactly what it was, about board meeting location and frequency. And we did make some changes to the board meeting frequency and schedule. However, at the time we decided to leave board meetings here at Village Hall. We had a good, discussion about that and good reasons for that. We had some pros and cons, but I'd like to bring that back up for discussion. Just in full transparency for those of you that may be watching, we continue to have technical difficulties here and can't always do the things we want to do at our board meeting. So may I suggest that we add that at the next meeting so that it gets into a discussion relatively quickly. And I will say the last couple of meetings we had this summer at the district office went really, really well, but we can save that for discussion next time. Anything else? No? Okay, great. Then we'll move on to the main part of our agenda tonight, which is the discussion and presentation. We do have 8 or 10 items or so. So the first one is strategic plan, district improvement plan. I will turn that over to Dr. Leali to kick it off.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and just start with thanking the community. Added a bunch of special board meetings. We had lots of opportunities for community to come and give comments and feedback. We also surveyed the community at various times throughout the process, and the team was able to take all of that information and feedback in after seeing even the final draft. And we even made some changes at that point. So we have spent the summer fleshing out the plan and then also creating some branding and a communication tool that we will be putting out for our parents at curriculum nights this week. So I'm super excited to share, and I'll share my screen. Our Route 65 Road to Success. We have a sample if you want to see the actual printed version. It's at the printer now. And again, we appreciate the support of everyone who helped look at the drafts and help us with the content. But essentially what we're looking at is a visual version of our full strategic plan. Included in this is a letter from myself, a letter from Andy as a board president, some data about our district. the way that we are looking to measure our success, which I will go into in a second, as well as kind of the community, the map that got us here. One thing that we've been really proud of over the last 4 years is how we've worked with the community. And so we really wanted to highlight all the partnership opportunities that we've had for the community all the way since the superintendent search in 2019. We also listed some strategic activities that we've done or some initiatives that we've done even prior to rolling out the strategic plan. And then as well as highlighting our core values and of course the portrait of a learner, which was done in partnership with District 67 and 115. We have our portraits of adults that work with us, our portrait of a system and how we want to make our decisions. And then the newest part or aspect of our plan, which is different even than CEC and what they've done in other plans, which is the portrait of a classroom and what we'd like to see in our instructional spaces, which I'm really proud of because our students had a lot to say about that and what they wanted in our classrooms. And I think it's really exciting that that made it into our plan. Our 5 goals are outlined there, as well as kind of the campaign that we've launched this year. Every day is the Lake Bluff Way, which obviously connects to our previous vision, which is now our motto, but also the fact that we really, really want all of our kids to be with us every day and having really good attendance because we know it matters for student growth and achievement. So these are being printed. These will be available for distribution at curriculum night starting on Thursday, as well as a video for me outlining just an intro to what I just said, as well as inviting everyone to the October town hall meeting with the board. And we will send more information out that. I'm not giving a ton of information on the video about that because people are not there to see that. So the one thing I did want to highlight is the measuring our success portion of the communication piece, because one thing we've really tried to capture in this is an accurate and realistic picture of student achievement and progress. And as you know, we talk about every year that we have multiple assessments that we give throughout the year to measure whether or not students are growing or achieving at grade level. One of those assessments is the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. And that obviously is the standardized assessment given to all students in grades 3 through 8 in the state of Illinois. That's the federal accountability measure. And that is what goes on our public report card. But as we also know, it's not the only way we measure progress, nor should it be the only way that students are able to demonstrate progress or that we can celebrate their success. So what we've tried to develop here is sort of a flow chart of how we would like to look at student achievement. So I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch here now and see if I can pull up a little bit of a different graphic. And what we're looking now at is the flow chart that got us to the data that you see in the communication piece. So for both areas, English language arts and math, which are the big areas that we are measured on for our federal accountability, we have multiple ways that we look at student achievement and growth. The first kind of bucket is that IAR that we just talked about. And in Illinois, a student is considered proficient with a score of 4 or 5. Some states also include the 3. Illinois does not. So it's a scale of 1 to 5, and 4 or 5 means the student has met or exceeded standards. And that's typically, well, it is the only assessment that's included on the Illinois report card online. And it's the only assessment data that is standardized that goes into our ratings. So like I said, we're trying to figure out a way that we can capture other ways that students demonstrate progress and achievement. And the other big assessment that we have for students are the NWEA MAP assessments, which are actually given to all students. But this data that you're looking at is only the data for 3rd through 8th grade students in ELA and math. So after kind of taking out the big percentage of students that met on IAR, then the students that are left, we're looking at whether or not they demonstrated high growth or high achievement or both on the NWEA MAP tests, which are given from 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. But what we're looking at is the fall to spring measure for the year. Finally, we are looking at our students who are multilingual learners who are trying to attain English proficiency. And they are actually given a standardized assessment every year called the Access Test. And they have levels of proficiency that they move through until they attain English proficiency. Obviously, a student who's learning multiple languages is going to have some difficulty and challenges in a high stakes standardized assessment or a computer adaptive assessment that's mostly in English. So we want to give those students an opportunity to demonstrate the growth that they're making throughout the year on this assessment, the Access Test, which is given and it measures only ELA. So we only count this one for ELA, but it measures speaking, writing, reading, and listening. So all 4 aspects of literacy. We will continue to look at ways that we can measure progress for our students who have individualized education plans. And that's in the works. So next year, we'll be looking at whether or not students met their annual goals. Because as you know, some of our students have specific learning challenges with regard to reading and math. And we'd like to give them the opportunity to demonstrate progress as well on their specific and targeted goals. So when you look at that, information and you put our students through this flow chart in grades 3 through 8, we have about 80% of our students demonstrating proficiency in one of these ways in English language arts, and then about 20% that are still not quite there yet. Of the students that aren't demonstrating proficiency in any of these ways, this is the breakdown of what they have going on in the classroom. So 26% of our students who haven't demonstrated proficiency do have an IEP or an individualized education program. 13% of the students are multilingual learners. A few students are multilingual and have a 504 plan, which means they have some accommodations. 8% are multilingual and also have an individualized education plan, and about 16% have a 504 plan for accommodations for their learning. So we do have some things in place for a lot of the students that aren't demonstrating proficiency yet that we believe are going to get them there eventually. In math, the numbers are a little bit different, about 79% of our students meeting and 21% of our students not meeting. And I showed the breakdown of what percentage met in each of the categories as well. So I think I did that for ELA also. Go ahead, Carrie.
So that part kind of confuses me, because I didn't meet my math IAR, just kidding. But the 70, can you just put it in terms like this?
So of the students that met, so of the students that demonstrated proficiency, 79% of them did it on the IAR.
Got it.
Then of the
Okay.
kids left, 3% demonstrated high growth and achievement, 8% demonstrated high achievement, 9% demonstrated high growth, and then a few kids demonstrated a level up on access. So those percentages are just of the students that met.
Got it. Okay.
So it's not 79%.
No,
You got a 4 or 5.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then of the students that don't meet, that's the breakdown of their characteristics. And then in math, the percentages are a little different. So of the 79% that demonstrated proficiency, 56% of those kids did it on the IAR. 17% demonstrated high growth and achievement, both on the MAP assessment. 11% demonstrated high achievement, 7% demonstrated high growth, and a few students, again, were in that bucket of access scores. And then of the students that did not show proficiency in math, 19% have an IEP, 12% are multilingual, a few students multilingual and have a Section 504 plan, 9% multilingual and have an IEP, and 22% have just a 504 plan. So again, what we're trying to show here is that we value all the time that we take to assess our students. As you know, the IAR takes a long time. It's a multi-day assessment that's given on the computer in the spring. It's also given in March before we even have instruction in April and May. So there's some time left in the year to learn. MAP is actually happening now for the fall. And then we have it in January again as a benchmark. And then again in the spring after IAR is given. So we look at that fall to spring growth. And then access takes almost all of January for all of our multilingual learners. And that's any student who is not English proficient yet. So again, I wanted to take some time to talk through that before we talk about our specific goals and how we'd like to measure our progress on this strategic plan. I feel really strongly that IAR not be the only way that we measure our success, because we give kids a lot of opportunities to be successful and demonstrate growth. And so this, I think, is a more accurate picture of how hard our students are working and how hard our staff are working to make sure that there's a way that our students can show what they're learning in school.
So is this just taken from last school year's data?
This
right?
is only last school year's data.
So how hard would it be? Because, with IAR and with that, you can compare year over year to know how you're trending. How hard would it be to go back 2 to 3 years with this same methodology and get data so that we have a couple of years, we have last year, and then we have this coming year?
It wouldn't be too hard. It would be some time consuming
Yeah.
though, because there isn't sort of an automated way to feed this in and go through this flow chart right now. So we're doing this by hand. And then obviously coding students, we have kids who do or fall into multiple groups. So you could do it.
Well, the reason I'm asking is, and I'm sorry I didn't think about it before the meeting, but that data is great, really helpful to understand, but I don't know how that stands to a year or 2 ago or 3 ago.
Right.
And I think that would be helpful.
It might be helpful. I do think
Or at
we're
least-
kind of in a baseline though, too,
Mhm.
this year, at the beginning of the strategic plan. So it certainly could show us something, but as we're moving forward, we would be looking for as cohort groups moving forward from the first year through the rest of the strategic plan and kind of following one class on their path through. And so not kind of comparing 4th grade to 4th grade to 4th grade, but third
Yeah.
graders to then 4th grade to 5th grade, and how we're doing, getting more of those students to demonstrate proficiency. But we could look, I probably would look at pre-pandemic. And
Yeah. Sure.
because we really don't have a lot of accurate data. Well, we don't have any from 2020. 2021, we offered the option for students to take the IR, which means we didn't have a lot of students take it. And then last year was really the first year that we had all of our students take it again. And many of our students, 2, 3 grade levels, that was their first time taking it. So I'm not sure it would be apples to apples, but
Sure.
we could work on it.
Well, maybe not necessarily. I just was curious. I mean, I think as we move, it makes sense to have it as a baseline year, a new strategic plan, call it. And I look forward to 2 or 3 years when we have 2 or 3 years of data to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea of seeing this now moving forward each year.
Tells a better story for sure, than just looking.
Can I ask some history on IAR in general? Like, they base their testing, they haven't changed it, the state. So,
The
like,
last iteration of IAR, I think, was called Park, and I'm pretty sure Park is about, we're about 4 or 5 years into IAR.
Okay.
I can't say they haven't changed. They release new test items every year, and
Yeah.
then they kind of push things out for practice, but no, the assessment essentially hasn't changed in the
Okay.
last few years.
And do they have options ever for second language?
There are
between-
some accommodations that can be made for math only for second language learners.
For math, universal language. Okay. 'Cause I'm
There's a
just
lot of
curious,
language.
It's not.
There's a lot
just-
of language and reading in math instruction. So yeah, there are some accommodations that could be made.
Are they looking, is there anybody that we could ask in the future? Are they looking at making it a bilingual exam? Because we can't be the only district, and I know it's not just one language, but to help the 13%.
I don't know that that's in the works in terms of being a bilingual. That's really the point of the access test,
Right.
and really
It's a whole month.
it takes a long time. And the reason it takes a long time is because a lot of it is given individually.
Right.
So we literally you have to be certified to give the access test. You have to be certified to score it. And then we have our assessors and our instructors sit with individuals and listen to them reading and speaking. And then it's a one-on-one assessment.
I'm just curious. For the
Yeah.
future of that test to give us.
And obviously, our goal for all students is to meet and exceed standards on IAR. That is why that's the first bucket. That's what we want for all of our students. And the idea behind including these other assessments is to show that even if students haven't attained that yet, they are making progress in other ways, and they're showing it in other ways. I mean, obviously, there's lots of variables when we talk about assessments. By the time a student gets to 8th grade, they've taken the MAP assessment potentially over 20 times. That in itself is a very long assessment, and you have to have some stamina to sit through it, and you have to care about the results. And, that's just one variable when we're looking at this. So again, it feels much better to me to give kids multiple chances and ways to demonstrate that they're growing, because a student could have an off day. They could not feel well that day, or they might have to make it up in a different room, and then that feels different. So there's lots of ways that assessments can be kind of skewed. So that's why I feel like this is a better and more accurate picture of how we're doing.
Is the presentation you just showed us, is that gonna be online? Or what you said to us was extremely helpful.
Mhm.
I would hate for the information to be misinterpreted.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the town hall and what we can do during that town hall, and what's important to hit during that piece. And I think what we just did is part of what should be presented at the town hall, in addition to the metrics, because obviously when we present our metrics, that's what feeds into it. So, but I really wanted the board to have an opportunity to take a look at it, and tell me if that makes sense.
Mhm. Okay.
So any thoughts or questions for Dr. Leali further?
When you present in the future, you know, this
Mhm.
data, I know we have the IAR data from the school report card already broken out, but it's helpful to see like what the percentages are of each one. So if that's not too time consuming, I know like to go in future presentations, I think
Yep.
that'd be helpful.
I don't want to, I think part of this is also waiting until we get our final data from IAR too. So these are all preliminary pre-ID scores and things. So I want to make sure that everything, when we look at our baseline for this year moving forward, is exactly what's going to be on the state report card as well, because sometimes that comes back a little bit different. But yes, we can do that as well. And you just mean totals, not in the flow chart. Is that what you mean?
I like, if like it's showing that 79% of 3rd through 8th grade students are in one of these 3 categories, knowing kind of how that's
Being
come up,
calculated.
because just so I agree that it's important to look at different things, but just so we're not, people don't think we're painting a picture.
Yes,
that's
totally.
than it is.
Yep. That's the challenge with this, because I certainly don't want to explain away that we have students that are still working on the IR. And so again, the challenge of this is communicating it in the right way, and that we can keep working on too, exactly how that looks for that community presentation. And if anyone has thoughts on better ways to do that, I'm working with our communications firm on kind of some different graphics. We've tried and played around with some different things.
Your guinea pig,
Okay,
Hmm.
excellent.
going percentage person.
So when we talk about actual metrics, we have some for this year, and then we have some for 2025, and then some for 2026. Generally speaking, strategic plans are 5 years long, but we're trying to make some mid-course goals so that we can, measure and then decide what we want to do after 3 years. But our first 2 goals, for goals 1 and 2 on the plan, which are student achievement and the culture and climate data. So goal 1, by the end of this year, 83% of our students demonstrating growth or achievement in reading and math as measured by the flow chart that we just talked about. And then by June, at the end of June this year, 83% of at least staff reporting high levels of engagement and satisfaction as measured by the culture and climate survey that we do every year. As you might remember, we were at 80% in the last time we measured. So we'd like to go up to 83. We will begin measuring student engagement and parent satisfaction, but we haven't done that survey yet. So we'll do that and have our baseline this year for student and parent, and then we can set some targets. SMART goal 3, and this is one we're talking about with community engagement, that 85% of parents will support their students by attending at least one partnership event. We don't have baseline data for that yet, so that's sort of a tentative goal, but I have a feeling we're close to that if we include all the events that aren't directly related to individual students. So for example, parent-teacher conferences wouldn't count. It would be more curriculum nights or open houses or other events that aren't directly related to getting information about their students. And then hopefully PTO events or alliance events and things like that. But we'd have to look at how we would collect attendance data on that. And then for goal 5, that's a 3-year goal, because our last strategic plan spent a lot of time talking about finance And we really did a nice job of shoring up our finances and creating a system there. So when we talked about our goals for the future in the area of finance and operations, we really want to take some time and build a system to ensure a return on investment of the resources that we have in the district. So that could be anything from curriculum materials, software, could be the furniture. So looking, just kind of building the system so that when we invest in something, we have a way to measure whether or not it's achieving the goals that we'd like it to achieve. And that will take some time to do that. Any thoughts on those goals?
I will just say that as I was reading this preparation, I was excited about it.
Mhm.
I think, I think we already have a wonderful school district, but I love the fact that we're still that growth mindset and working towards improving it more. So I think they're exciting.
For the parent and student kind of engagement satisfaction, how will that be measured? Is that through like the 5 essentials? Or
No,
something else?
no, we're looking at a different survey, and we do have the 5 essentials, which is, as we know, very, very long, and it takes a lot to get measurable data back.
And people don't. really-
And people, yeah, it's just a very long, and you have to fill one out for every one of your students. So what we're looking to do is implement a new survey that's a little bit easier for parents to fill out. And that has been utilized by a lot of other districts in the area, and it is aligned with the staff culture and climate survey that we have, and then will be aligned with the student engagement survey. So the data will come back similar for satisfaction and engagement on that.
And for goal 3, I think it's important for, parents to obviously be involved in their students' education, but I see like certain events, like I know not everyone can make it to a parent teacher conference or to curriculum night, but those are pretty important events, and I see those as why those could be included, but some of the other events, I know we want our families to be involved in schools, but I don't know. To me, it's asking a lot to go to something that maybe isn't directly right. That's not directly involved with your child, and I know we're a community and we want to support all of our kids, but I think I don't know, that goal, I was just kind of, I'm not fully sure how that'd be measuring it.
I think we'd be looking at, I think what we've talked about is we'd like every family to participate in at least one of those things. With curriculum night and open houses being included, but we can revisit that too.
Well, and you mean by 85%, you mean like of the whole 85% does just at least one. It's not 85% of the people are at curriculum night or.
Yes,
at-
yes,
Right,
at least
it's
one.
like of our student body. that-
Mhm.
Right, and are we accounting things like, kindergarten ice cream social, the art show, are we counting everything?
We'd have to decide how we're gonna take attendance if we were going to do those things. So we would again, and I think the goal 3 goal is really about building the partnerships between us and other organizations. So PTO is one of those organizations, and we would work with them. If we decided that is something that we could add to this, how would we take attendance? How would we account for that? Or it might just be a survey at the end of the year. Which events did you participate in? And we might ask that every family fill it out. So part of it is like, how could we collect this data? But we do think it's important. It's a value of the community. It's in the strategic plan that we want to have those partnerships. Because obviously we know the more engaged more comfortable that parents feel in the schools, the better their students do, because parents are more willing to reach out and ask for help if they need it, or connect with other parents and families. So we can revisit this one and take a look at that again if we'd like.
I just want to be sure that, I guess it sounds, you're getting credit. I just want there to be people to feel
Like pressure.
like, oh, it's like, I did this, but it's like, I didn't go to this meeting or this event or something. And not that they necessarily would by just looking at this goal, but that's kind of what I was thinking.
The first thing I pictured when I read the goal was that scene in 16 Candles where the parents push the kid in the
girl.
doors and they lock the like for the mixer. Like we would be doing that to parents, like, no, we're like, not forcing, but like. This is our goal so that you have to perform for it. I appreciate the goal though, because I do think it's extremely important for people to engage. I'm curious. I was thinking like. Tim, if there was more, when we talk about it a lot of times, more volunteer opportunities in the
Mhm.
classroom or in school. And then for those kind of opportunities, I know with our security and safety measures, eventually, like, there might be a way that we can calculate who's coming in and who's not.
Well, is there a way we also can word it or present it where it is, right? It's not
Like, well,
you're
how
a bad
can-
parent if you
No,
don't come to this.
but also, like,
here are all the opportunities we have for people.
Or what are we missing
Well-
that you would want to be in?
I think we could also word it differently in terms of, I mean, the goal is not really for parents to perform, but more for us to create opportunities that all parents want to be involved in.
Exactly.
So maybe the goal is more that the district provides opportunities that are appealing to 85% of families to engage with. Or the district and or partner organizations, you know.
That's a nice perspective.
Or, I mean, we could even do a less of a SMART goal and say that we continue to, you know, increase the number of parents or families that attend partnership events each year and not set a number on it. We could just
Because
say
we're
we'd like to
providing
increase
more.
every year because it's really on us to provide opportunities that parents want to engage with.
Right.
It's not really on them to decide to come to things that they don't want to be at, if that makes
Because I
sense.
feel
Yep.
pressure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel that, you know, when we had a lot of public volunteer options, but every time I was sign up, the same parent or the first one. And I
Mhm.
more, you know, I think I don't know what we about this.
We don't either. So that's part of, but we do have high levels of engagement. I think that's the thing. We already have pretty good high levels of parent engagement with some of the things that we offer.
Right.
Um,
I'm wondering if, and this is probably more of a PTO question, but how we can think more about the parents who don't always know and target it to that, to really aim it for the parents. For whatever reason, can't always show up to the party or
mhm.
and so how we really include, you know, that group, because there's a group who just, they show up for everything.
Yeah.
And then there's a group who for whatever. it's can't.
Well, and some of it comes up naturally as we talk about like initial, you know, when we talked about spring concerts, for example, at the elementary, we made some adjustments last year for one of the grades, I think, because some parents were saying, I just can't make it during that time. And so it was on us to create a different situation so that more parents could be involved. So I think that's a great point. We need, part of it is collecting that data to know who isn't and why aren't they able to participate. And so that's again on us to build that system. But I certainly don't want people to feel pressured or bad if they're not able to. I'm one of those parents, you know, that can't go to everything for their children. So why don't we take this back? I'll take some of this feedback and retake a look at it before our next meeting.
That's a great idea.
I have a little feedback for the staff part. Because I do feel like we wouldn't expect them outside of their work time to always be showing up if they didn't have to, but I was curious, you know, we've spoken sometimes about like surveys that we ask them to fill out or things like that. Like, is there a way to count that as engagement for them so that we can, like, how can we get them more engaged in their opinions and their like.
Staff?
Yeah. Because it's a little different than parents. Like,
Is there a way, maybe
Like-
I'm not,
Do they not fill them out now?
it's not mandatory, you can't force, you know, when we're sending out surveys of things, you know, I'm like losing.
Like
all-
community-wide surveys, you're saying? that
Yes,
we-
or staff-wide surveys, you know, we never get 100% back,
pretty
So-
close a lot of times.
but I was
Yeah.
thinking like that could be one of those goals that we
Yeah.
get 100% and like how to do that. Could we incentivize a little bit? with the surveys or even having parents fill them out, like you're entered into a raffle. I don't know, just something to get more people paying attention.
We could definitely look at rates of participation
Yeah.
on the survey. And we can start with the Humanex survey, which
I
is the
even
culture
think
and climate one that we
Even
do.
A parent responding to a survey shows participation in something.
Mhm. The hard thing too is collecting that data if the surveys are anonymous.
Right.
So, and sometimes you don't get the same feedback if it's not anonymous. So we have to kind of walk that balance because,
And not too many surveys.
right,
Right, I mean, I
Yeah.
would say,
First.
I feel like I'm a pretty engaged parent in the school district and I really feel ours,
mhm,
you know, like.
yeah.
There's just a survey that was sent out, that the word survey reminded me, there's a survey.
Website,
For us to serve it.
the website survey. Mhm.
You didn't do that one?
I didn't.
That's
even see
okay.
it.
I had to see it 6 times to remind me. so.
That problem's on me, I will say, not on the school, that's.
No, but
Well, I mean, it's kind of on us to get the right balance too,
Mhm.
because you want information, but you also don't want to overload people with surveys and inundate them.
Adding it to a wrap or something.
Mhm.
yeah.
That actually does bring me to an idea that I don't want to do the conversation there, but maybe something to talk about at a future meeting also is the idea of having, you know, whether it's our website or we had talked about some sort of database, a place where parents go to find the information from the school, rather than school pushing it to inbox.
Like,
Mhm.
oh, are there any surveys out there that I haven't filled out page?
I
But
mean, yes.
seriously, like,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
what am, have I missed something that I?
And there can still be notifications, like,
Like we
survey up on whatever, click here.
Like it's the homework, notes, you know where to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
On
You're not
page,
facing
and,
mail or-
you know,
Right.
Yeah.
We can look at that.
Or like if you feel like, oh, I was at school recently and you can go and
Mhm.
find out.
or
what's
up,
going on.
yeah.
So is there, the goal is to have these SMART goals ready and for
For the town hall.
the town hall.
Mhm.
Would that, I know we're pending baseline data, but would that include some of the baseline data?
We're not gonna have
Not
some of the
exactly.
baseline data yet.
Cause I think it's, okay.
Yeah.
Is it, when do you think we'll have that?
Well, the parent and student surveys are later in the year
Yeah.
for
okay.
engagement. So, but we definitely would have a way to do the staff. We would have the system
Mhm,
kind of outlined
mhm.
for, I mean, we'll come back with some more information on, now that I have a better idea of what we want to do for the community participation, we can come back with a system and a better worded goal, I think,
Okay.
for that.
So for goal one, for example, we
Those are
have-
pretty hard and fast, goal one.
Right. Would we be able to write the goal slightly differently? So we could say, you know, like, you know, an increase of blank equals 83% of students from baseline blank, whatever that is, that we could say
Mhm.
what we're actually attaining to, as opposed to.
Yep.
If we have the baseline data for any of these, it would be great to write the goals that way, so that as they're being presented.
Yep.
We could show that we're being ambitious and, you know, not going from 82% to 83%.
Yep.
You know,
I like that.
Good feedback, thank you.
any others?
Can you remind us what SMART stands for?
then
Yes,
say-
specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound.
That's in
So
the
just-
presentation.
Is it what?
If it's ever like said, is there like a foot?
I can make sure that I include that.
That is a funny question.
Yep.
Yeah. That is a smart question.
Yeah, just a way to write the goal so that we make sure that we know how we're measuring it and that it can be achieved. So, and then just the other piece of that is that once we decide on these metrics, those will become really our district and school improvement plans. And then more specific goals would be determined based on grade level data that they've broken down for themselves and looking at student performance from last year and what they'd like to increase to for this year.
Are we going to transition into the town hall meeting?
We can right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I was curious.
So for October's town hall meeting, really when we brainstormed it, when Andy and I were talking about it, it was really a kind of a question and answer, an opportunity to have more of a free flow dialogue with community members. But obviously with a grounding in what the strategic plan is, what the process was, what our metrics are, and then be able to have folks have their questions answered or addressed at that time.
Yeah, so my thought was just like, oh yeah, I kind of have it on my calendar, but maybe discuss it a little bit more in the curriculum night presentation, just so that people watching your video can make mental notes to say, oh, I have a question that you would probably love an email on, and or show up at town hall.
Actually, Tim had made a suggestion that we send out a survey. A survey ahead of time, asking for questions ahead
Like
of
a
time.
Google form.
Yeah, like a Google form.
Maybe that's a sort for survey.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad idea, because it would be nice to just answer people's.
Yes.
You know.
I'm
frequent-
mentioning it, like I said, in the video. I'm not going into a ton of specifics about what it is, but we'll send home more information with the form to fill out for questions that they'd like to have answered, and then videotape it and have that available online as well in case people can't attend.
But they'll have the opportunity to walk up to a microphone and say what
Mhm.
their question is, if they haven't.
Town hall style.
Yep.
We could also do it a little bit differently if we wanted to. We could just hand out index cards. Sometimes people don't want to walk up to a microphone and do it, so we can hand out index cards and have our administrators kind of organizing them and putting them into categories and do it that way as well. You can do that too. Yeah, that sounds like a great job. We can have both options available. Yeah. Mhm. Anything else we'd like to do at that event? We have purchased, just as an FYI, some translation headsets for our families that speak another language. Those work where we have simultaneous translation happening into the headset. So somebody would be sitting, talking into the translators, and the families would have the headsets on so that they could hear it simultaneously translated. So we would use that as well for that type of event.
That's two-way in case there's questions and a different.
We would probably have them use the translator.
Yeah,
Yep,
got
to
it.
ask their questions. It doesn't work two-way though.
It does, so they would.
Yeah,
just-
they would have to talk to the translator.
Will an email go out to those families so they are aware that?
Yeah, we can include that in the invitation. It's a good idea. And we do have bilingual parent advisory committee meeting. Yeah, I'm not sure if we're having, I think it's at LBES in the multipurpose room. I'm not sure if we will send out, yeah. Anything else? It'll be at LBES at in the multipurpose room.
The booklet and everything just turned out very nicely.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone's feedback on that back and forth a few times, so. I'm really excited about the plan. I think it turned out well, and it's really given us a lot of direction, and we've had a lot of great conversations already internally about the action steps that we'd like to take to keep improving for our students. So thank you.
That's great. I do like seeing, there are all the committees working towards each goal, and I love
Mhm.
that you explained really exactly then what those committees are gonna focus on. That was
Mhm.
helpful.
Any other questions? Strategic plan or improvement plan? Great. All right, then we'll move on to 6th enrollment.
Can we unmute Tracy? I think she was going to talk about this one. This is an annual report, just to give an update on where we are with enrollment.
Right, good evening, everyone. As you can see on my screen here, we have our chart showing our enrollment for our sixth
Want me to
school,
turn on or? Okay.
our sixth school.
Tracy, if you can hear us.
You know what? I'll just do this.
Not funny.
To report the number of students we have enrolled by the 6th day of school. We use it to compare our enrollment over time. And then we report this to the Regional Office of Education. So we've increased by 2.2% since the last year, 22-23 school year. And you can see the numbers that we have below. They're broken down by grade. And in the past, the board has just liked to see this. And the reason why it's a 6-day is typically just because sometimes it takes some families a little bit of time to get their registration paperwork and all done and have everyone in school.
The out is just who is absent that day. Or is that an outplaced student?
No, those are outplaced.
Okay.
Yep.
Because it's based on enrollment, not
Yes,
attendance.
it's not attendance. I'm sorry. And actually, that's a little bit of a misnomer we put on the agenda. It's in the enrollment report. So it's who's enrolled. Yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any questions about that? Okay, then we'll move on to 7C, which is a discussion item on guest teacher procedures.
Okay, so we had a request from a board member to help us out as a guest teacher. And we appreciate, as you may or may not know, you might have heard at some point that we need a lot of guest teachers because we don't always have them. This was something that board members did for us during COVID. A lot of you helped out as guest teachers. And I think Lauren would like to continue with that practice. We just want to be very open and transparent about what that means. So obviously board members are volunteers, you're elected officials. There are ways that school board members can be employed with the district for limited compensation. So there would be a limit of earned income of $1,200 over the course of a school year, which gives us about 9 days for a board member to help out. It doesn't sound like a lot, but actually it helps out a lot. We have needs sometimes for half days, which people can't always pick up. And so it's very helpful to have people on call. We would want to compensate any board member that wanted to do this because that's something that we compensate other individuals for. And we would not want to have anyone volunteer their time for something that we compensate other folks for and hire them for. So this really is just kind of an opportunity for you to discuss whether or not the board is okay with that happening and give the administration some direction on that.
So I think there's two components here. One is optics and the second is what the attorneys say. Could you share a little bit about what the attorney's recommendations are?
Sure. Yeah. So the recommendation from the attorney is yes, again, that we don't have anyone volunteer to do something that other folks are paid for. So that's like fair labor, practices, and that we would always want to treat everyone fairly. And that we just then adhere to the cap on the earned income from a board member. So that's the advice. And, there are shortages everywhere for everything. And this is something that a lot of districts are coming up against and dealing with. And we're just appreciative of anyone who wants to help out with our students. Obviously, board members have a tremendous amount of time that you already donate freely. So we would want to compensate if we could.
It makes sense to me, and I think given the attorney's recommendation and the fact that there's already something written into the school code about what that cap is, and as long as we're in line with that, I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts.
I'm in favor of it. I think we need substitutes and you have a background in teaching. You are an excellent teacher. You have a lot of experience and the district could be lucky to have you. Excited for my 9 days.
9 days or 18 half days. Yes. Or 24 2-hour meetings. No, I'm just kidding. We can break it down in any increment. Yes.
I fully agree and hey.
Yeah.
Anyone for this as well, because of the attorney recommendation, because of the fair practice, but also it's outside of the scope of the board member, so.
I have no issues with it at all.
And just to be clear, we would vote on this in the personnel report at the any board member that wanted to be in that capacity.
Yes. Yeah, we would hire. Yes.
Any questions or comments? Question?
And I do it myself.
All protocols and procedures. Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate everything you do for the district.
All right, then, moving on to 7D is the library intergovernmental agreement.
Yeah, so for some background on this is an agreement that's been in place for some time between the Lake Bluff Public Library and District 65. The goal of this agreement is to ensure that all of our students, regardless of whether or not they live within the village limits, are able to access the library materials. And it's a really great thing for our families and students, all of them, to be able to access all the resources that are in the Lake Bluff Public Library. And so again, this agreement just outlines that that we have an annual fee of $1,000 from our district to the library to make sure that all of our students can have access to resources. Lauren did ask a question about ease of signing up, because I know sometimes for some of our families, it's hard to get to the library, and actually the new library director, Renee Grassi, has been working with one of our librarians already to plan some events around parent-teacher conferences to have library staff in our buildings to help families sign up for their library cards. So we're trying to do some outreach and some more cooperation with this, but we're really, really appreciative of this partnership with the library.
I believe this question was asked last year, and I don't remember the answer. I know that this is for our district. Do we know if the high school has the same?
I believe the answer is yes, because we did look into that
Right.
last year,
So
right?
they
Jay,
can
I
do-
think, yeah, yep.
Okay.
So it continues. Yes.
Pretty straightforward. Any
And we will
questions?
vote on that at
Vote
the
on
next
that.
meeting. Yep.
Okay. Moving on into 7E, Shared Director of Safety and Security.
Okay, so as you know, we talk a lot about safety and security. We've done some improvements this year in terms of facilities. We've been upgrading our cameras and surveillance. We're installing, some deterrents in front of the elementary school. We have a great partnership with the Lake Bluff Police Department. We have done some trainings together. We have some upcoming. But one thing that has been happening in our area recently is that a lot of districts in our region have been hiring someone to be in charge of safety and security that is not necessarily full-time on staff, but sort of a shared resource. This is different than a school resource officer. So a school resource officer is typically shared between the district and the police department, and really is a law enforcement officer and acting in that capacity. We have already talked about that, as you know, and we decided that we didn't feel at that time that a school resource officer was a good fit for us, given the size of our police department, the proximity to the department, and the amount of time that they already kind of help with us and come and meet our kids and interact with us. This is sort of an oversight of facilities, safety and security position. And the reason it's shared is because of a few reasons. One is that there isn't a lot for them to do day to day, thank goodness. And it is nice to have a shared person that oversees safety and security in multiple districts in close municipalities, because in the event that there is something big happening, first responders will be coming from all areas that are close to us. And so a shared person to oversee those kinds of events, preparing for those kinds of events, who knows all the facilities, who can help with reunification, which will definitely happen off campus in another place. Those kinds of people can be really helpful when administration and staff are worried about students, families, and staff, and making sure everyone's safe in those events. So we have some partners. As you know, we're in the North region. A lot of times we connect with the other True North districts. So in the North region, Highland Park High School has hired one. Highland Park District 112, 109, and Bannockburn have shared one. Lake Forest District 67 and 115 have recently hired one. And so I've reached out to the superintendent of Libertyville District 70 to consider whether or not our districts would be a good match to share this kind of a position. District 70 has 5 buildings. We only have 2. So we would obviously cost share it on a per pupil or per building basis and start with the 2 districts to see what that load feels like. There are other small districts in the area that we might potentially reach out to in the future if this were to work out. And, there was some time in that person's schedule, but we thought it would be smart to just kind of look. Both districts are considering this as something that might be helpful for them. They have not brought it to a board discussion yet, but they are being informed of it this month and starting the discussion now. So I'm just bringing it to you as something to consider. I do think it would be an asset for us. It's hard to imagine being in a crisis scenario, but I do know that brain research would tell you that many brains get hijacked in that situation, and having somebody who's super prepared and their brain is always practicing those scenarios is a good thing. So that would be a pro for having a position like that.
So it'd be more like a consultant position.
Like oversight consultant and then liaison, right, to all of the municipalities and the first responders.
Okay.
So
And then where would they work out of.
Don't know yet, those kinds of things. Really what I'm looking for, even, not even tonight, but in our next meeting is just consensus from the board to start to look at what that might look like. To look at some other agreements that other districts have, look at some job descriptions that other districts have developed. I mean, I've put in some things that we think they would be probably looking to do. But again, we'd want to consult with our police department. We would want to consult with our fire department, obviously work with Libertyville. And their needs as well.
Is this the type of position that? Is somebody doing this work already?
Yes,
Who,
Like they're
I mean,
certified.
you guys are all sharing it?
yeah,
or-
we're all sharing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so consolidated into one person and free you guys up for other folks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last few updates, I've mentioned a lot about safety and security because there's just a lot going on right now. I think I just received an email, there've been 5 libraries that have received the bomb threat swatting calls just today. So government agencies are starting to have these things pop up more and more. And just on some of the training that we've done, you really have to stay current with what's going on with that so that you're measured and thoughtful in your response, because obviously there is not one, everything is situational, right? There's not one way to respond to all these things, and they're becoming more complicated the further along we get. And so, yes, we all take a part of it. We try to double up on the trainings. We sent a couple people to Wisconsin this summer. 5 of us are scheduled to go in October. It's hard to have everyone out of the building. And obviously we're sharing our police department with the needs of the community as well. So, long answer, but yes, it's shared right now.
Who is
So-
this? Sorry.
So would it be a full-time position that we're sharing
Mhm.
with them? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like consulting hours? It would
No,
be somebody-
It would be a full-time position. Yep.
Salary.
Mhm.
And.
But as we see it now, I mean, if we wanted to look at other ways to do it, we could as well.
Just for curiosity, what does this person usually look like in other districts? Like a former police officer or somebody who's like.
Typically law enforcement, yeah,
Like dealt with security and
Mhm.
safety is like.
or has overseen safety security before.
And District 67, 115, it wouldn't have worked to. I mean, it naturally, it seemed like
We partner.
we partnered with them, but that wasn't an option.
It's not something that we discussed.
Got
Yeah, it just didn't come up.
The part about Libertyville made me happy because they're not as close
Mhm.
in case something was to happen. I feel like
Yeah.
it might spill over into Lake Forest. You
Yeah.
just never know. So like Libertyville, at least like they wouldn't, I don't know, I thought.
And
the
they all, I
person
mean, truly,
would
like
be
all those municipalities would be involved if anything happened for
Right.
us or for them. We would all be partnering anyway, but yes, that makes sense because
like it's a little remote.
reunification and those kinds of issues would have to happen
Mhm.
off campus in a way.
Explain.
Sorry, reunification. So if we needed to evacuate from the building, there would be evacuation sites, and then we would need to have a place where we reunified students and staff with family members. That's a different process, right? So there's communication to get everyone out potentially of the building or out of harm's way, and then we would have to get everyone into a process where we reunify. The first responders are really in charge until we get to reunification, and then we take over. And we have to have a system and a process in place for that, that honors, the severity of the incident, the dignity of everyone who's involved, ensures that we have privacy and confidentiality, ensures that our staff know what they're doing, and we have layers of incident command. So there's a lot to do, because recovery starts then at that moment. And if we don't do it well, that's not good. So we want to make sure we're fully prepared. It's a terrible thing to think about, but we
Well, I
want to
was
make
gonna
sure we're
say, We
prepared.
spoke about it when there was the incident, it was at Lincolnshire where they had the bomb threat.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, oh my gosh, like all these things happen when you shut down school and people need to leave and there's so much more than just like a fire drill. So I
Yeah.
thought it was very interesting and needed, because I don't know.
Like the logistics of that
Mhm.
alone. Yeah.
Hopefully we'll never need it. It's one of those things that you never want to need.
But you can't be caught with your pants down.
Budget wise, do we feel like this is something we could work into the budget if we found it to be available?
So then, just so we understand the process, brief discussion tonight, Libertyville is going to be discussing it, and then at some point we'll have a full you want to.
So like our next meeting, I'll just be asking for board consensus to move forward to start designing some kind of a job description and potential agreement.
Do you want that tonight or?
No,
Okay,
no,
just
we
for
can
the
wait.
consensus.
Yeah, because they haven't really had a chance to discuss it. And so I'd want to let them get a little further down the road too.
Does it completely hinge on them? Or is? this
No, I
something-
mean, we could reach out to other districts. To me, the balance of having 7 buildings seems like a good
Yeah.
balance and, but if they for some reason are not interested, then I would certainly reach out to some other districts.
Would it be something we could do on our own if needed as like a part-time, or is that?
Potentially.
Oh.
No, potentially. You could look into that as well.
Any other questions, comments?
Mhm.
Okay. Great, thank you, Lisa. So we'll move on to item 7F, social media guidelines.
Okay, so this is just an example from our communications firm. As you may or may not have noticed, we're posting more on social media because they're helping us with that. And this is just good, good best practice to have this on the website. Some guidance for how to comment or what not to comment, what to share, what not to share. It's shared with every district they work with. Our legal team is happy with this, thinks it's a good idea as well, if we feel comfortable with it. So I'm really just making you aware that we're going to be putting some things out there in terms of guidance for commenting on social media.
Why do we allow comments?
That was my question. to you.
We don't have to if we don't want to.
That was my only thought when I read the guideline was like, well, if we didn't like we have somebody managing our social media. So therefore, if they had a question or concern or troll, they can message and then we could filter that way. So I think what I've seen on social media is it just spirals or people get together and they create fake dialogues to rile people up and they'll go back and forth and mess up. And by the time you get there, it's been chatted and sent around. So if we could vote on something like that. That
That
would
was
be,
my thought too.
No comments?
Possibility, just.
Yeah.
just turn it on.
Okay.
There are plenty of ways for people to get in touch with the districts, all the way up to district leadership,
Yeah.
to individual teachers.
keep the guideline, but there's.
Yeah.
Cause I like the guidelines in response to like sending a message, like conduct yourself.
Unless, for
accordingly.
oh, sorry, Carrie. I was saying, unless for some reason you or the staff thinks that there's value in the comments or that that's a way you can engage people, but I'm totally with you on why open this ourselves up to that.
We can put that on for next meeting.
But I think the guidelines look great.
Mhm.
Okay.
I wish they would just post that every.
Questions? Discussion, comments? Okay. Moving right along then to social media litigation.
Okay, so we've talked about this a couple of times now. I got some questions that you had answered. Those are in your packet in the memo. I don't know if there's any other clarification that anyone would like, but essentially, this conversation is about whether or not to engage with what do they call it? Mass action litigation against some big social media entities, not for the purpose of really monetary reward, but more parental control or some modifications to social media that would be healthier for students' mental health. So some of the questions you had last time, can we discontinue our participation if we don't like the way it's going? And the answer is yes. There's really no financial risk in this. The only stipulation was that if we decided to pull out of this particular attorney's or firm's process and went and hired somebody else for the exact same process, if there was financial restitution, then that would have to be talked about. How much time? It really shouldn't take a lot of time. It's about 5 hours for staff to complete the onboarding, informational packet. No information would be shared individually. It's really just looking at in the aggregate what have been our experiences regarding social media. I don't see us as a bellwether district where we would be getting really extensively involved in it and providing any kind of interviews or other information. So the person I talked to was very willing to come and zoom in at the next board meeting to answer any additional questions that you had. If you'd like him to do that.
I only had one more question based on this, but for us, would there ever be, and I know you can't proceed, but answering their questions or doing any of their work, would we ever have to talk to our attorneys and use that time and money to cover. That's the only time I saw like money being a spending.
Potentially, I don't really see it going that way.
We could just fail. them.
Yeah, if you
Right.
were feeling it was,
We're worried that. it's
yeah.
gonna come To us spending money.
Okay,
What is how I see it.
I thought it was great after hearing
Yeah.
more in the questions answered.
I do kind of need to know tonight if you would like him to zoom in at the next meeting so that I can invite him and ensure that he has an invitation.
I have like questions though. I just want to see more. Does he have a presentation more or like?
Well, that YouTube video is really the presentation that I shared earlier, so
I wouldn't want to waste his
Yeah.
time.
no,
So maybe down the road, if we have
Okay.
questions, that it's still, offer's still on the table, but I don't think we.
okay,
I agree. So, but we will vote on this next time in terms of actually getting ourselves in the. master
yes,
plan, right?
because we will need to sign an agreement to work with that firm, because it's not one that we work with.
And at 5 hours, I don't wanna, that's 5 hours, is 5 hours, but that's it.
It seems like that's the extent of it.
Okay, so it's not.
And that's like a max 5 hours.
But they did say
Yeah.
they don't totally know. It
Yeah.
could. If we had.
I mean,
I think they're guessing too, based on what information we have at our fingertips, what information we would need to find.
We're a smaller district.
Right.
So maybe we would, I guess I would just, we to go forward with this. I would want to give you the out of, if it does come cumbersome. I would want you to come to us and say, hey
Yeah.
guys, this is becoming to be more than we expected.
I appreciate
And
that.
then for us to. Give you the, okay, with it, okay.
Yeah, we don't want to put the word retracted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Maybe a guest teacher could do the 5 hours.
Not over, not over, not.
But that's a really good point, though. If at some point,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, it seems like our district is gonna be more involved in the initial.
That makes
yeah,
sense.
Please, yeah. That'd be great.
I always appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks for getting those questions answered too.
Mhm.
That's very helpful. Okay, moving on with two more. Next one is press policy 112 first read.
Yeah, again, thank you to Carrie, Tim and Ann, our policy committee. Many of these policies are 5-year reviews. There was nothing changed in those. There were a couple of questions that we had to answer. I'm just going back to our worksheet. That's not where I wanted to go. So sorry. Give me 1 second. If you go into the second item, there were just a couple of questions here. There was nothing really substantial in terms of changes.
The memo, the notes.
I was looking at the memo because there's good information in the press policy update
Mhm.
memo. But this is first read, so if you have any questions, next time will be second read and we'll vote on those.
Thing before we move on. Okay, final discussion item then is superintendent evaluation goals.
Okay, so as you know, every fall I present kind of the goals of my evaluation for the year. Until now, my goals have been aligned to what were written in my original contract in 2019. And so now that we have a new strategic plan, I'd like my goals as well as the goals of the rest of the administrative team to be aligned with the SMART goals of goal 1 and 2 in our strategic plan, which aligned to student growth and achievement and staff climate and culture. In addition, I will continue to be evaluated on the competencies listed below: relationship with the board, community engagement, staff relationships, business and finance, and educational leadership. So those are standard, as you remember, and based on leadership standards that are nationally recognized. The 2 goals that are customized are based on our district goals. And then our process typically is that I would spend the first, 4 or 5 months filling in evidence and creating that sort of portfolio of work for you to see. And then you would complete an informal mid-year evaluation with no rating to give me some feedback on how things are going. And then the final rating would happen around March. And just in all transparency, I appreciate the level of dialogue that we have already. So I don't want anyone to get the impression that I'm not getting feedback until December or January, because I think we have a good flow of communication. And I think I have a good amount of communication with folks when you have questions or when you feel like things are not going well. So this is a formal process. It's important that we do it. But I just wanted that out there.
And we're still one of the only districts that I know of that does mid-year.
Yes.
Right, so at least we. have-
Yeah, it's surprising every year that I talk about this, how many districts don't evaluate their superintendent formally at all, so. We
The
do
good
it.
news is that these can be changed and put into our existing platform.
Yes.
which We're semi-comfortable with.
We know how it
As well as it works, yeah.
Yeah.
At least we know how to use it, okay. This makes sense to me, any comments?
I just have one question, just for your sake, like, the goal is to be met in June of 2024, or at least for one of them,
Yeah.
will we be able to see your progress? Will you have metrics for us so that we can evaluate?
Not on goal one, yeah, until June. I mean, the hard thing is that if you want to really look at student achievement data for the course of the year, you would need to do it after that, but timeline for a superintendent to not be evaluated until June is really hard, because if things were to go not in a good direction, then that's not good timing for me.
Mhm.
So we will have some,
Something.
yeah,
to
some
help
benchmarks,
us.
yep. Some benchmarks, but not quite all of them. I certainly will be able to provide you an update based on winter data.
Good question. Carrie.
We can also do that. We can also consider, now that we're really looking at this type of a SMART goal, we can do it in the rears too.
Mhm.
So we can utilize the June data for next year's
Mhm.
evaluation, which is actually what we do for our teachers as well. So
Okay, anything else there?
we'll vote on that at the next meeting.
Great. Okay. Then if there's no other questions, comments, or discussion, we will move on to the final public comment period. It's our second and available opportunity for the evening. Nobody else in the room, and I assume nobody's joined us since the link. We're not playing on this way. So great. Again, if you happen to watch us later, we do offer those two comments, those two public comment opportunities at every meeting, and we always like to hear from the public. With that being said, then I think we're going to move to adjourn. So I may have a motion to adjourn the September 12th Board of Education meeting at 8:16 p.m.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?